Hi friends, how are you? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing okay. The first video that I posted on this channel almost reached 10,000 views, and in that video I was telling you guys about my favorite novel-length Dramione fanfictions, and ever since then I have had the opportunity to read so many more great Dramione stories, and so I feel compelled in today's video to give you guys an updated list of my favorite Dramione novel-length fanfictions. Welcome to my top 15 Dramione novel-length fanfictions. Coming up first on my list, some of you guys may have already guessed this already, but my number one favorite, my top favorite of all time Dramione story is The Dragon Prize by Rizzo. This story is a 7-year alternative universe story, but this deviates a lot from canon, so do not expect to see any of the canon typical 7 years detail in this story at all. This story starts out for us with our lovebird Draco and Hermione waking up in a hotel room together, accidentally soul bonded via a marriage tattoo. I don't know about you guys, but that is the most exciting and unique premise that I have ever had a chance to come across with Dramione story, and this is usually recommended under the accidental marriage or accidental magic trope, but to me it's just so much more because the Dragon Bride is just a whole package. Okay, it has so many adventures and a little bit of a murder mystery to keep you on your soul and to keep you reading, so much thrill, and of course the romance between Draco and Hermione is just chef's kiss. I have never seen such dynamic between Draco and Hermione in any other story apart from The Dragon Prize by Rizzo, because the character development and the relationship building between Draco and Hermione, and of course with all the other characters as well, are very unique and original, and something that you don't come by a lot in the fanfiction community. Probably has one of my favorite Draco of all time, and I really love the character development of Hermione in this story as well. Both of them are just top notch in this story. The moments and the details between them are very selective, but it is so exquisite. Their love is not spoken, but it is shown through every single soft touch, every single detail. This story is very big. It almost has 300,000 words, but to me it's super engaging. It's almost like after you pick it up you will never be able to drop it down, and to me Rizzo create this kind of like alternative to the wizarding world where you get pulled into that world and you want to stay in there, you want to finish this story like immediately. To me this is just one of the best novel-length Dramione story out there that you can find, and it is a must read in my book, with the original plot line and the premises, such unique characterization and detail. It will just stay on your mind because it is such an unforgettable piece of work. You must read this story yesterday, but I'm also biased because this is my top favorite Dramione of all time story. But before you start with this story, there are two disclaimers that I want to raise. The first one is that there is a little bit of a trigger warning in the earlier chapter of the story, so please beware of those before you start. The second thing is that you may find this story not completed on AO3 because Rizzo is migrating to AO3 from fanfiction.net, and she is reposting this story chapter by chapter, so you can find a lot of completed file sharing on the internet floating around the community, or you can follow this story as a work in progress with the assurance that it has already been completed and it's just being reposted by the author. The next story on my list is a story that if I can give tie would be in the #1 spot with The Dragon Bride as well, and that is 39 by Nefer. This is a post-war story where Draco and a small group of Death Eaters and Death Eater empathizer enter a program where their memories are taken away from them and replaced with a life of a Muggle, and they are released into the Muggle world. Each of the programmee here gets a caseworker who monitor all of the activities and their life in the Muggle world, and of course Mr. Draco Malfoy gets Hermione Granger. So this story has a big focus on memory altercation and Muggle leaving, so you will see glimpses of Draco living without magic, and he's pretty good at it. So this is another one of the story where I find that the dynamic between Draco and Hermione is super unique and original, and I specifically love the characterization of Hermione in this story. She is just so badass and I love her with all of my heart. On the other hand, we have such a snarky Draco. He just run his mouth rampage, but he is super tender, so domestic that he will spoon your heart in this story. The banter that they have in this story will just crack you up, and I want to say that this is one of the stories that will make you laugh out loud while you read the story, but there are chapters in this story that will give you that heartstring pull type of feeling, like your heart is being squeezed type of feeling, angst. So to me this story is just a perfect, well-rounded novel with so good writing, so thought out details and plotline, such unique characterization and details, and the moments between Draco and Hermione will just make you swoon. If you are a person who prefer the focus of the story to stay on Draco and Hermione, this story is also going to be perfect for you because the focus of the story doesn't really stray away from the couple, so you get to see a lot of one-on-one activities that would just melt your heart down into a puddle. In my book, this is on the shorter side of the novel length range, so if you want a quick, easy, and super good and memorable read, go ahead and hit up 39 by Neil Fur. Number 3 on my list, this is an updated piece of work, and we have Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love by Edith Self-Care, or as I usually call it, the Batmobile by Edith Self-Care. Now, this is a post-war story, Draco's point of view, where our top talented #1 Aura in the country get assigned a security mission for the top talented researcher and healer in the country, Hermione Granger. So we get to see a partner in crime type of story here. Partner in crime turns something, of course, because you already know what it is. To me, there's only one word to describe Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love, and that is the word grand. To me, this story is just so grand. The plotline, the premises, the details, the research that Edith Self-Care has to put into the story, the characterization, the detail, the moment between them, the descriptive details of the environment or the background that they are in are just so beyond me. This story is just so well written, so well developed. The plotline is so thought out that when you finish the story, you will question that how are you reading this story for free on the internet? To me, Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love is just so many facets, and when I want to think about the Batmobile, I usually think of a symphony where there are so many elements, but somehow it all harmonized together to create like such a masterpiece that will touch the deepest corner in your heart. This, to me, is just top tier writing, top tier detail, top tier everything. It's almost like you cannot find a bad thing to say about Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love. And to me, I know that the characters are super overpowered in this. Our lovebirds are just superheroes in this, but we all love overpowered characters, do we? And if you want to squash off that taboo about fanfiction and you want to see what is the deal about fanfiction, I would recommend Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love any day, because to me the quality of Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love exceeds some of the romance published book that I have ever read by tenfold. I feel like this is gonna be a perfect summer read for you if you haven't read the Draco Malfoy and Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love yet, because this is such a well-written romance story with so many adventures, and they will keep you on a vacation this summer if you are staying at home reading. I think that's enough to say about the Batmobile, because I am nobody to this story. This story, you just have to go out there and experience it for yourself, like I say. And this grand masterpiece deserves to be read by every single person in this community. Next, we have a little bit of a different story. We have Waffenstreit by Kiyonomiko, and this is my first read of the year 2023, like I have shared with you guys in many of my videos before. This is a post-war 8-year story that starts out for us at the end of 8 years actually, where Draco needs an escape route out of Hogwarts without anybody knowing. So his grand idea is that he transforms himself into his animated form. So we have an animated Draco in this story. He transforms himself into an animal, hoping that any student in Hogwarts would pick him up and bring him home onto the Hogwarts Express so that he can escape Hogwarts without anybody knowing. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him, the student picking him up being Hermione Granger, who has developed a separation issues and depression borderline after the war. So now he faced with the dilemma: am I going to escape this war, or am I going to stay as a pet, helping someone cope with the war afterwards? To me, this is a very realistic but at the same time super light-hearted healing post-war story. In this story, we have two broken souls kind of coming together, mending each other, and kind of fuse their different perspective being on different sides of the war in order to kind of become better together. And I know that Draco and Hermione is my one true pairing, so I would say all the good things about them. But to me, the Draco and Hermione that we see in Waffenstreit by Kiyonomiko is just born for each other, because they are just like a complete puzzle in this story, and I love that for them. In this story, their love is super tender. The detail, the characterization will just melt you down into a puddle. And we have some really nice supporting characters in this story. Lucius and Narcissa also make an appearance, but the bonus of all bonus, is not pot for you girlies out there who like to have a side of not pot with your dramione main dish. And this is another story where I find myself laughing out loud while reading this story, but also having my heart pull out and squeeze with the angst of in some of the chapters in this story as well. So to me, this story is super well balanced. We have a perfect amount of dramione one-on-one time, but we also can see their interaction with the other characters as well, so we can look at their character as a whole, like from different perspectives instead of just looking at them in that relationship. We also have a lot of fluffy and hilarious detail, like hilarious interaction and conversation between all of the characters, but also we have some really angsty moment and some deeper conversation between the characters as well. To me, it is super well rounded and it deserves one spot on your to be read list if you haven't read this story before. My heart is just super full with this story. Next we have Remain Nameless by Hatred 19, and this is also another post-war story where Draco and Hermione unexpectedly run into each other at a Muggle cafe 9 years after the final battle of Hogwarts. So even though this story is set 9 years later, we can see a lot of healing, a lot of second chances, shrugging off your prejudice to make new friendship type of story. And I usually use the word slice of life to describe Remain Nameless, and I still don't know if that is the correct way to describe this story yet, but to me it's almost like you are watching a movie or like a series on Draco and Hermione's life and their memories, how they come together, how they build their life and their relationship, how they interact with their friends, their family. Everything is included in this 300,000 word novel. And with that being said, Remain Nameless just has about everything that you can think of in a fanfiction or in a romance book, period. The romance, the adventures, the vacation, the exquisite details, the characterization, the fluff, the angst, the smooth, all of it will just leave you satisfied. And because this story has 300,000 words, the author had that real estate in order to kind of show us the depth of Draco and Hermione, of their relationship, of their life, and of course of the other characters as well in this story to us. So if you like that big story with a lot of supporting characters, a lot of plot line detail kind of woven together, like a real life friendship group, I feel like this story is going to be perfect for you. And also this is going to be a perfect summer read because they will take you on a vacation as well with the details in here, okay? And this is a 300,000 word story that I immediately reread after I finished it the first time. Me, someone who hates slow burn, I do not think that any of those 300,000 words is redundant at all, and I just devour this story like a hungry child. So if you enjoy anything that I have mentioned so far, please go ahead and read Remain Nameless by Hatred 19 because I feel like this is a must read in the dramione fandom. Next, to nobody's surprise, I have Statics by Galfoy. This is a Voldemort's Win alternative universe story where Hermione is asked to open the door of her safe house in order to welcome the two newly rescued Death Eater, Lucius and Draco Malfoy, father and son, both into her home. And the story progresses with us finding out how they navigate through that shared living sticky situation. Statics and any other Galfoy story, I find that the storyline is super fast paced and the details and everything is just super expedited. It's a quick and an easy read, but it is never one-dimensional. And I particularly love the characterization of Draco and Hermione in this story. To me, Hermione can be a little bit too forgiving in this story, but I feel like with the premise and the setting of the story, it makes sense for her character. On the other hand, we have a perfect character growth for Draco in this story. Their love is just so tender in this story. With all of Galfoy's story, you will find that we have supportive Narcissa and Lucius Malfoy. So if you guys enjoy that side in dramione fandom, I feel like this story is gonna be perfect for you. I love everything about Statics, but once again, you guys already know that Galfoy is my favorite of all time dramione story. So this story may be biased and it may not compare to the other pilers that I mentioned in this list, but to me, Statics has all of my heart. Next, we have the most beautifully written dramione novel that I have ever read, and that is Trust and Lie by Max Boyle. This story starts out for us at the beginning of 6th year, so we have an alternative universe that deviates from canon at the beginning of 6th year. Hermione unexpectedly saved Draco's life in a very tricky situation at the beginning of their 6th year, and Hermione was forced to lie about it. So Draco and Hermione kind of had the opportunity to foster a very awkward or very interesting friendship, and throughout the story we'll get to see how the war turns out differently had Draco had a little bit more support being friends with Hermione Granger in 6th year. This story is just the most beautifully written story with the most well thought out storyline that I have ever read. The attention to details that the author put into this story is just mind-blowing to me. And if you guys are into a story with such unique premise, original plotline where you cannot guess what's coming next, and something that you have never seen before in the dramione fandom, I feel like Trust and Lie is going to be perfect for you. Also with the characters, if you guys are into good Dumbledore, good with Snape, if you guys are into a lot of original characters who have life to them, like without, you know, getting put into the story just for the sake of having supporting characters, this story is going to be perfect for you too. And the characters of Draco and Hermione are just so exquisite. Even though this is a wartime story, it is super plot driven. You don't find yourself getting lost in the war without seeing a lot of the romance between Draco and Hermione, because the author did a perfect job to kind of like highlight the romance between Draco and Hermione throughout the war and kind of emphasize the depth of their love for each other too. So this story is just, it owns my heart, and it surprised me not to see Trust and Light recommend so much more in the Dramione fandom, because I think this story deserves all the hype. One bonus thing that I really love about Trust and Light is that even though this is a wartime story, it doesn't make your heart race with anxiety. Of course, there's also suspense because this is a wartime story, so suspense is just kind of like a given element of the story. But at the same time, it doesn't make you scared or worried to death about the lovebird. So if all of these that I have mentioned above is your thing, please go ahead and read Trust and Light, because I promise you, you will not regret it. Next, we have Simply Irresistible by Bookworm 1993, and this is my favorite rom-com Hermione story where Draco gave Hermione an entire makeover to revenge her ex Ron Weasley for cheating on her. So if that synopsis pull you in, then listen up. This story has Ron bashing, this story has exquisite details, this story is fast-paced but is so multi-dimensional. This story has an ensemble of supporting cast who are just so popping with color and flavors that you will feel like you're breaking up with your friend group after you finish this story. This story just has about everything to make it a perfect light-hearted summer read for you guys, because it's perfect. One more thing that I am super in love with Simply Irresistible is that the storyline is non-linear, so the author incorporates so many flashbacks in order to show us kind of like the depth and the history of Draco and Hermione relationship, but also by bringing in the flashback, the storyline become non-linear, and it's make the reading experience super fun, and you don't get bored out while reading this story. So please go ahead and read this story. If you're in need of a summer read, this story is going to be perfect for you to read outside or on a vacation, because it is so lovely. Next, we have Draconian by Noelle, and this is also one of the stories that has a super unique premise. In this story, we know that the Order of Phoenix has lost the final battle of Hogwarts and is now forced into hiding, with Hermione Granger missing in action. Now Draco is the right-hand man to the Voldemort regime when he is contacted by Andromeda Tongue, his aunt, and his contact with the Order, with a mission to locate Hermione Granger because she is believed to be the key to this whole war. But when Draco found Hermione 3 years later after the final battle, she is nowhere like the Hermione Granger in his memory. She's obliviated, she doesn't know anything about magic, she doesn't know anything about the war, anything about Harry Potter at all. So he's now faced with the dilemma of sending Hermione back to the Order and send her into the battle without knowing anything about magic at all, or keeping her safe in the world ruled by draconian law, his own law. Premise is probably the longest premise that I have read in my entire Hermione reading career, but it pulled me right in. Once again, this story is a wartime story that doesn't make your heart race. So if you got a girly that enjoy wartime story but do not want to be stressed out, this story is perfect as well. And I feel like the dynamic between Draco and Hermione in this story is also super unique. And if you love a Draco that does its all and say nothing, this story is going to be perfect for you, because to me, this is one of the Draco that will do anything for Hermione Granger. Bonus, if you enjoy a supportive Slytherin group, this story is probably the best supportive Slytherin group that I have ever had a chance to read. To me, in my opinion, it's very hard to describe Draconian just because the writing, the development, the characterization, the plotline, everything is very non-extreme to me. And if you put Draconian beside other stories in this list, you may find that it is not comparable to all of the pilots in the Hermione fandom, but for some reason it touched the deepest corner in my heart. It gives me such a different emotion when reading this story. Like every pieces of Draconian just fit together so well, like kind of create this puzzle that after you finish reading, it gives you that euphoria of kind of finishing a puzzle to me. So if all of those elements are your thing, please go ahead and read this story, even though I'm doing a really bad job of convincing you guys. Next, we are moving post-war with a story by Lady Kenzie 347. We have Sweetly Broken, and this is a very realistic, non-filter, non-pink healing story in Draco's point of view after the war. In this story, we discuss a lot of bad coping mechanisms. So we have alcohol abuse, we have drug abuse, we have all of that. So please be aware of the trigger warning before you start this story. And this story, I feel like the focus is more on Draco's journey to happiness more than the romance between Draco and Hermione, which is what I usually prefer to read. But for some reason, I am just wholeheartedly in love with this story. And every time that Draco and Hermione touch in this story, every time that they interact with each other, is forever engraved in my heart. Like all of the detail, the moment between them, I can probably recite right now. This story is not your typical dramione story, and that is also a bonus because it will make this story super unforgettable to you. And this story is also one more beautifully written, well thought out story that I will forever remember, and it is on my favorite list for a reason. So if you guys are more interested in seeing a very realistic, non-filtered, no pinky story here about healing after the war, how these young adults kind of cope with such a tremendous event that is the war, then head to Really Broken by Lady Kenji 347 because you have a good time. Next, we have also a post-war story, but it is super lighthearted and everything about this story is just super sweet, and that is Apple Pie is Another a Man by To Eat a Peach. This story starts out for us with Hermione starting her PTSD dessert tour. She's baking for everyone and anyone in the Wizarding War, anyone who is involved in the war, desserts that include friends and foes. And of course, one of her stops on the tour is Malfoy Manor, and we get to see how they kind of spark that relationship and how they kind of develop that romance after the war. Everything about this story is just tooth-rotting fluff. It's super sweet, and make sure that you are full when you read this story because this story will make you super hungry. And I always describe Apple Pie is Another Man by To Eat a Peach as a blanket on a cold winter morning. It will make you feel so good that you never want to leave this story. If you want to see another side of Draco, Lucius, and Narcissa, please head to this story. If you want a big supporting cast who are mature and is supportive of their friends, head to this story. If you want a story that discusses dessert and cuisine, head to this story. Everything about this story is super warm, super lighthearted, super fluffy, and of course super sweet. So like I say, make sure you're full before you head to Apple Pie is Another Man by To Eat a Peach, and you will probably have a super good time. Next, we have Manacle by Celine Yu, and I feel really bad for putting it at number 12, but this story stressed me out so much, okay? If you have not heard about this story before, which I doubt because I see it platter all over the internet, we have a true Voldemort win alternative universe story here with Harry and the Order of Phoenix losing the final battle at Hogwarts. Hermione is now a prisoner of war, and she is being kept captive by the High Reeve in order to discover a lost memory in her mind, which Lord Voldemort believed to be the key of the war. This story is no joke, so please be aware of all the trigger warning before you start this story, because the trigger warning that the author put out is kind of like the spine and the foundation of this work, and you cannot skip over that part at all. So please be aware of all the trigger warning before you start this story. I would say that Manacle by Celine Yu is probably the most read, the most recommended, and the most loved dramione story out there. But I wouldn't recommend this story as your first dramione read because of how heavy this story is. And I love everything about this story. And of course, this is a masterpiece, so I feel like it is beyond me to even talk about this story. Such a well thought out storyline with so exquisite details, and the characterization are on point. Of course, it is a fan favorite for a reason, and if you guys are into wartime story, true Voldemort win alternative universe story, this story is gonna be perfect for you because it is brutal. It will make your heart bleed, it will kill you with all the pain, but also it will give you such a unforgettable read that will occupy your mind, and you will not be able to read anything else for a long time after you finish Manacle by Celine Yu. Next, we have another masterpiece, and that is Measure of a Man by Ina Das 22. Like I say, I have already made a whole video on Measure of a Man alone, so if you guys want a little bit more details on Measure of a Man, I would recommend checking out that video. But this story is a post-war story set 13 years after the final battle at Hogwarts. This story is kind of like the bridge between the final battle and when this generation of Hogwarts students send their kids to Hogwarts for the first time. We see the story through Hermione's lens, a story about Draco Malfoy becoming a better father, a better son, and a better man. But to me, that synopsis doesn't do this story any justice at all, because this story is so multi-layered, so multi-dimensional, so multifaceted. There are just so many elements about this story, and it is a very big, it is a 600,000 word fan fiction, so be prepared to get into the weed of it. Be prepared to get so many expensive details about each and every single character that is included in this story. Every single details in this story has a meaning, every single character serves a purpose. Everything about this story is top tier. The writing, the detail, the characterization, the realistic characterization of both Draco and Hermione, and all of the moment, the detail, the smooth, the fluff, the angst, everything about this story will just leave you satisfied. But I would say that this is a super slow burn story, and the first few chapters are going to be brutal to you if you are like me and you do not enjoy slow burn at all. But after you get over that hunch of the first few chapters, the story kind of picks up a little bit, and at the end you will find yourself reading such a masterpiece that will also occupy your mind and not allowing you to read any other story afterwards. coming almost to the end of the list, we have The Order of Serpent, and this is once again another Voldemort's Win alternative universe story. In this story, we get a little bit of a different premise because Harry was killed in the Forbidden Forest and is now used as a vessel for Lord Voldemort. So a couple years into the war, Draco Malfoy defected to the Order with his son in tow, his son being Scorpius Malfoy. This once again is a super realistic wartime story with no pinky filter. You will get to see a lot of descriptive details in this story too, so please make sure that you check out the trigger warning and the tag before you start this story. But to me, this is a super plot driven story where we get to see the romance of Draco and Hermione kind of develop as the war goes on. So it is super eventful, super thrill for you to read. It will keep you on your toe and keep you reading, but at the same time doesn't make you feel lost in the war and not getting to see much of the romance between Draco and Hermione. This is a very perfect balance story as well. If you have a baby fever, maybe skip this story because Scorpius Malfoy will give you such a hard time in this story. You will get to see the quality and the attention to detail and the effort that the author put into this story because it's just top tier. This is another masterpiece Dramione work that I don't see recommended often, which is so surprising to me. But if you guys are into the wartime trope with a little bit of like Scorpius Malfoy side dish, then this story is going to be perfect for you because it is so lovely and it's so unforgettable too. Lastly, number 15, we have Isolation by Bex Jan, and now this is the first Dramione story that I have ever read. And so no matter how many great Dramione stories that I read afterward, this story will forever holds a place in my heart. And this story opened up for us in the 7th year, and this is a 7th year alternative universe wartime story where Hermione doesn't go on a Horcrux hunting trip with Harry and Ron, but she stays back at Hogwarts. On the other hand, Draco is kept in Snape protection after the event of the Astronomy Tower, and he is now brought back to Hogwarts and is forced to share a living quarter with Hermione for his own protection. So how they kind of navigate through that shared quarter living situation is how we get to see the story. This story has one of the most controversial Draco character growth stories that I have ever seen. You either love the character growth of Draco in this story or you hate it. To me, I think it's perfectly done given the premise and the setting of this story. This story is very fanfiction to me in a way, and it's almost kind of include all of the elements of fanfiction that you expect to see. Enemy to lover, schoolyard trope, drama, teenagers hormone, fluff angst. To me, this is almost like an OG piece of work that you have to read when you come into the Dramione fandom because they speak their dynamics so well. And to me, because it is the first Dramione that I have ever read, like I say, no matter how many more pieces of work that I read, Isolation will always have a place in my heart. And that is the end to my top favorite Dramione novel-length fanfiction. Please let me know in the comment down below what is your top 15 or your top 5 Dramione fanfiction favorites. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts too, and I would love to see if some of our favorites are overlapped. And I hope that you guys have a good time hanging out with me, and I will see you guys in the next video because I'm losing my voice now. Okay, bye!